Today's stuff we're going to be learning is Bava Batra Daf Tadi. We're going to get started at the braita at the end of yesterday's stuff. So we were learning about people who can cheat other people and methods that they could use and how to avoid this from happening. So one of the things we learned was that you can't keep a vessel in your house that's not the exact size and that it's off a little bit because someone could use it, even if you're using it as a chamber pot. And from there, the braita went off into a list of measurements that you are allowed to use. So we have a se'ah, a tirkav, which is half of that, a chatzi tirkav, which is half of that, okay, which is a quarter of a se'ah. Now, just to get into kav, because now we're going to start with a kav has six kavim in a se'ah. So a quarter of a se'ah is going to be, I said that wrong. We have a se'ah, which is, 6 kav. We have a tirkav, which is 3 kav. We have a chatzi tirkav, which is 1.5 kav. And then we have a kav measurement. Okay, soon the Gemara is going to ask, why don't we have a 2 kav measurement? If we have 3 kav, 1.5, and 1, what happened to 2? Chatzi kav, half a kav, rova, quarter kav, tomen, 1/8 of a kav, chatzi tomen, 1/16 of a kav, uchla, which we said before is 1/5. Okay, today we're going to figure out why 1/5 is always mentioned at the end. V'kama uchla, how much is an uchla? It's 1/5 of a quarter. So if it's 1/5 of a quarter, that ends up in 20th. So now we understand why the 5th comes at the end, because the 5th really means 1/5 of a quarter, which means 1/20th. So it's 1/16 is the one before that, and then a 1/20th measurement. Now that was all dry measurements. Now in liquid measurements, we call them other things. We'll say hin, which is 12 log, chatzi ahin, which is 6 log, shlishit ahin, which is 4 log, rivi'it ahin, which is quarter log, which is 3 log, vilog, 1 log, v'chatzi log, half a log, rivi'it, a quarter of a log, u'shminit, 1/8 of a log, ve'echam mishmona b'shminit. Instead of a 16th, here we have 1/8 of an 8th, which means 1/64. V'zeu kortov. That little measurement we call a kortov. You might remember it comes up, for example, in a mikvah. 40 se'ah that's missing even a kortov is disqualified. So kortov is 1 out of 64. It's a very small measurement. So now the Gemara gets back to our question. V'la'avid nami kabayim, because that was the end of the braita. And now they say, why didn't they have a 2 kav measurement? Why did they have 1.5 and 3, but not 2? They say, because if you make a 2, now here we again get to what people might confuse. And if people might confuse between a 2 and a 3, and let's say you come in by 3, and I measure you in a 2 log, there's a chance that you might get confused, right? That you won't notice that I switched the measurement. And therefore, you can't do that. So now they say, wait a minute. Almatau inashe tilta. Are you saying people get confused by a third? I said it tlata before, that's 3. Tilta means a third. People will confuse a third because what's a third of 3? 1, and 2 to 3 is a difference of 1. Okay, today's going to be a whole day of mathematical fractions, so be prepared. So that's a third difference. So if we're concerned that people are going to confuse things off, that could be off by a third, then you shouldn't have a kav measurement. Because what do we say? Chatzi tirkav is 1.5. Now the difference between 1.5 and 1 is again a third. Again, it's all depending how you look at it. We're always going to use the higher number, and the Gemara is going to talk about that later. When you come up with a third, it's going to be a third of a half. Well, of 1.5 is a half. So minus a half from 1.5, you get to 1. So the difference between a kav and a chatzi tirkav is a third. Right? It's really a half, but it's a third of 1.5. It's the percentage, right? So if we're clearly not confused, people will be off by a third, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have a kav and a chatzi tirkav. So the reason we don't do 2 kav is not because we're worried you're going to switch 2 and 3. What are we obviously worried? You're going to switch 2 and 1.5. You might confuse 2 and 1.5, because what's the difference there? A quarter, not a third. Okay, and then the difference between 2 and 1.5 is a half, which is a half. Again, the percentage or the difference between 1.5 and 2 is 1/4 of 2. So we're worried that you might be off by 1/4 from the number. So again, 1/4 of 2 is half. So now they say, okay, so Amatayin Sheriva. Well, then you're saying people get confused by 1/4. But if that's the case, what's Chatzi Tomen is a 16th, and an Uchla is 1/20th. Now, what's 1/4 of 16? 1/4, right? 1/4 of 16, 1/16th is 1/4. So how can you diminish, right? How can you have something that's 1/4 smaller than 1/16th, which would be 1/20th? So that's right. The difference between them is exactly that difference. So Amar Rav Papa, here comes our answer. And this contradicts something we said yesterday. We'll have to work that out in a minute. Midot ktanot b'kibu inashe. People are very up on the difference between small measurements. And the reason is, well, people use small measuring things in the kitchen all the time, in cooking and other kind of things. So, right, like just think about in your house. So I have a 1/8 of a teaspoon and 1/4 of a teaspoon. Now the difference between them is very clear. But sometimes I have a 3/4 cup measurement and a 1 cup. And sometimes I confuse between them. When I open the drawer and I look, I always have to look twice. Is that 3/4? Is it a cup? It's easier to distinguish the differences when they're very small. It's harder to distinguish them when they're bigger. Okay, so either because people commonly use the small ones, or perhaps because it's just easier to distinguish the differences. If that's the case, though, we saw in the previous stuff that you can't make weights smaller than a reva litra, because people are not going to know this difference between the smaller weights. So how do we reconcile that with this? So we could claim, right, the commentaries talk about this, it makes sense, that the size of a stone, you might not notice the difference between really small ones. Okay, that already gets hard to understand. But a measuring utensil, because you use it a lot in the kitchen and other things, measuring cup or teaspoon, you might know the difference between, but not necessarily different size stones. And that sounds logical. But we still have a problem. If you say 1/4, right, is fine. Right, 1/4 is what we're concerned with. That's exactly the shiur we're concerned with. Shlishitayin, revi'itayin lo le'avi. The difference between a shlishitayin and revi'itayin is also 1/4, because shlishitayin is 4 log, and revi'itayin is 3 log. And the difference between 4 and 3, again, 3 is 1/4 less than 4. So how do we have both those measurements? To which the Gemara answers, kevan dehavu b'mikdash lo gazru bu Rabbanan. You might remember with the sacrifices they brought a chatziyayin and a revi'irayin, shlishirayin, depending on which animal you're bringing, how much of the wine and the oil libations did you need to bring in the temple? So those were measurements that we use in the temple all the time, and that's why we allow them. To which the Gemara, right, so lo gazru bu Rabbanan, the rabbis didn't make a gzera in things that implements we used in the temple, and therefore since they use them in the temple, we're allowed to use them at home as well, or in business. To which the Gemara says, "B'mikdash nami liksor." But why in the mikdash weren't they concerned that they were going to use the wrong measurement? They would get confused. Kohanim's rezimim, because the Kohanim were very careful and meticulous, and therefore there was no reason for concern. So once there was no reason for concern for the Kohanim, and they had these implements, once we already had the implements in the temple, we allowed those implements outside the temple. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel is now going to have a halacha that we're going to try to figure out. We're going to have 4 attempts to understand why he said what he said, or what's the basis for his ruling. Ein mosifim al hamidot yoter mishtut. If you want to change the measurements, and the Rashbam says we're talking about the people in the city decide that a se'ah is no longer to be the size of the se'ah used to be. We're going to raise the amount that goes into a se'ah. It's going to be a se'ah plus a little bit more. Well, you can't make it more than 1/6 of what it was before. And if you want to change the value of a coin, you also can't do it more than 1/6. Okay, the 6 reminds you of ona'ah, if you remember, about overcharging. And this really sounds like ona'ah. If you're going to make profit off something, you can't profit more than 1/6. So now the Gemara says, so if you can't add to measurements, you can't change them to be more than 1/6. Why? My time. What's the reason? Ilema, first attempt, if you're going to say, Mishum afkuetara, If you're worried that it's going to cause a rise in prices, and then what's the problem? Well, if it causes a rise in prices, right? If a se'ah pitom all of a sudden becomes a bigger, well, then everyone's going to charge more money for it because the se'ah changed. Instead of a se'ah costing $1, se'ah's going to now cost $1 and change. Now, theoretically, you would think, okay, so if it's up to a 6, so the price will go up exactly accordingly. But here they say perhaps the issue is that once the price goes up, people will just jack up the price even more. And then that will cause a problem for people because they jack the prices up. And we want to protect prices that they're not so high so that you protect the buyers, right? Which are the common people. So they say, but if you're worried about people that once they raise the price a little, they'll just jack up the price even more. Well, then shtu nami lo, then even at a 6, that should be a problem. And is why did Shmuel say more than a 6? Any amount of rise in the measurement could cause a rise in price, which could cause the sellers to just jack it up even more and rip people off. Ella, so second attempt. Mishumona to have a bitul mekach. Well, why a 6 specifically? Because we want to be able to make sure that people don't have people canceling deals on them because they'll say, oh, you overcharged me because here, let's say they find, they say, oh, well, it went up a 6. So up until a 6, you can raise it because if you're going to charge more, if you're going to, just one second. Right. We don't want to create a situation where the change in price will cause people to be able to cancel deals. If you raise it more than a 6, then people will be able to say, hey, this, like, for example, the stakera, right? So that they don't cancel deals. And if you add to the midot and then charge more money, so people will say, oh, that wasn't fair, and they'll cancel it. But the issue here can't be ona. Why? Because what's bitul mekach? Bitul mekach means that you could say that wasn't a deal because you charged me too much. But Rava says, kol dvar shebemidah v'shebemishkal v'shebeminyan afilu pachomich de'ona chozer. If we're worried that people are going to cheat other people and overcharge, and then in a way that the deal will be canceled, it shouldn't make a difference up to a 6, past a 6. Shmuel's halacha was only past a 6, but even under a 6, any kind of time when anyone uses, right, in this case, the changing of measurements to cheat somebody, well, any kind of cheating, you can cancel the sale even without a difference of a 6. If it's something that has weight, is weighed and goes by price, or measured and goes by price and all that, and someone messed it up by a 6 to cheat you, or less than a 6, or more than a 6, it doesn't make a difference. That 6 measurement is irrelevant because you can always cancel a deal. So if someone cheated you. So if it's, in other words, again, it has to be someone cheated you in a way that it was measured, weighed, and there were prices to it. So then basically that couldn't be the reason that Shmuel's talking about. So let's try another one. Told you there's 4, we're only up to number 3. Ella, we don't want to create a loss for the middle person. Now why? What would happen? Well, if you add to midot or something like that, a 6, and you charge a 6th more. But what's the problem? That's the retail. That's the wholesale. Wholesaler charges more than what they usually sell. And now what usually happens is they usually charge less than the market price. And then the middle person will then go sell it, right? The salesman will, or the storekeeper will sell it for a profit of up to a 6th. That's the whole thing. They can sell for a profit up to a 6th. But if the price goes up by more than a 6th, then or by about by a 6th, at a 6th, they'll be able to sell it for what, it doesn't necessarily mean if the wholesaler jacks up their price, well, now they're going to assume this now. It doesn't usually work this way, but let's assume the middle person won't be able to sell it though for more. If they, let's say, up the weight, the measurement of a seah by a 6 and charge a 6 more. And then the seller will still have to sell it though for the original price, because not necessarily that people will buy it at a higher price. So that will mean if it's exactly up to a 6, so they won't have a loss. More than a 6, they'll take a loss because they'll have to pay more than a 6 more, but they won't be able to sell it for more, so they'll have to take a loss. So that's the suggestion, which is a ridiculous suggestion because if the midot go up, then they should be able to charge more. But anyway, we'll see why the Gemara rejects this, because they're going to say, Rav Chalobai, wait a minute. We want to make sure that it doesn't cause a loss to the middle person. Now, if the middle person can buy it for 6 more of what it used to be, and now they sell it for the same price, so they've made no profit, right? So now, what's the point of being a middleman or middlewoman if you're not going to make a profit, right? That's basically taking a loss because you're working to gain nothing. So that's the Gemara. I'm going to read the words. I get it that if it goes up to a 6, we're now bothered with the up to a 6. Why does Shmuel say it's okay to do it up to a 6? Because it won't be a loss for the salespeople, for the storekeepers. But Rav Chalobai, what, do they not need to make a profit? Right? First of all, they have their time and their work, and they should get paid for that. And Zvan v'zabin tagara ikre, someone who buys and sells for the exact same price. They're called a salesperson, right? They're called a tagar, a peddler. No, of course not. So that would definitely be a loss for them. Again, even at less than a 6, because no profit means loss. Ella, finally getting to the 4th explanation. Rav Chisda. Why, again, we want to figure out why Shmuel said you can raise these things up to a 6 and not more than a 6. So the answer is simple. Shmuel ka ashkach v'darish. Forget about the reasons why. He just found it in a pasuk and learned it out from the pasuk. What's the pasuk? It's a pasuk in Yechezkel, and it says, shekel esrim gera, a shekel, which is a shekel of those days was a sela, which is 4 dinarim, is esrim gera. Okay, that's how many, those are small coins that make up the shekel. Esrim shkalim, chamisha ve'esrim shkalim, 10 v'chamisha shekel hamaneh yeh lachem. Okay, the first part, the shekel esrim gera, is not so important. And they were telling you what a shekel is. But now they're going to tell you that there's 20 shekels, there's 25 shekels, there's 15 shekels in a maneh. Meaning, if you take all those numbers and add them up, you get to 60 shekels. 20, 25, and 15 is 60. Now, that's called a maneh. Hamaneh yelachem. Now, what is a maneh usually? A maneh, okay, according to this, it's 60 shekels. Shekels are 4 slaim, okay, or 4 a shekel. I said that wrong. Shekel is 4 dinarim, which is 1 sela, okay? A shekel here is a sela. That's what they told you. A shekel is esrim gera. That means the shekel is a sela, which is 4 dinarim or 4 zuzim. And normally we say, and that's going to be our question, that a maneh is 100 dinarim. According to this, it's 60 shekels, which is times 4, because each shekel is worth 4 dinarim. I said it wrong. Shekel is not a sela. A shekel is a quarter of a sela. And if you have 60 shekels in a maneh, it means you're going to have 240 dinarim in this maneh. So something doesn't fit right here, okay? Because we said we normally know it's 100 dinarim. So to which we're going to turn to Amud Bet. Maneh 240 havu. How could a maneh be 240? Ella shmamina. We're going to learn from here 3 things. Shmamina, maneh shel kodesh kaful haya. The maneh in the temple was double. And what Yechezkel was talking about was in the temple. So double will get us to 200. Okay, so a maneh that's normally 100 dinarim is 200. We still have those 240. So what do you learn here? That he must have added to the value of it. And shmamina mosifim ala midot ve'en mosifin yoter mishtut. You can add to the measurements or here to the coins, but only up to a 1/6. What's the difference between 200 and 240? Well, a 1/6 of 240 is 40. So the difference of 40 is exactly what you can add. So you can add to 200 another 40. Now, there's something a little strange because 40 to 200 is actually a 1/5, not a 1/6. So the Gemara then adds, which is something we've seen many times already, ushmamina shtuta milava. when you calculate the sixth, it's always from the higher number. So it comes from the 240 and not from the 200. So a sixth of 240 is 40. And therefore, if you want to add to 200, you're allowed to add up to 40 more. You can add, right, up to a sixth more, but not any more than that. And that's where Shmuel got to this number of a sixth. And back to what kind of weights and what kind of measurements we can add. Okay, not weights, sorry, not weights, today's measurements. So Rav Papa bar Shmuel takin kiyala bar tlata kvize. Okay, now it's unclear here at the beginning of the story whether he was talking about making a new measuring implement, which we talked about was a whole thing about what percentage higher, lower you could do, or whether he was adding to he changed a measurement that existed and changed it to this. So we're going to see right now. He made a measurement that was bar tlata kvize. It was 3 kvizim. A kviz, the Rashbam tells us, is a kav minus a log. Okay, we didn't really talk about kavim and logim, but a kav is 4 log, and this is 1 log less than a kav, so it's 3 log. So kvizi is 3 log, and he did tlata kvize, 3 of kvizis. Now kvizi each is 3, so 3 times 3 is 9. So he made this vessel that was 9 log. Now what they thought, if you remember, we had a log and a chatzi log. So we had a hin and a chatzi hin. A hin is 12, and a chatzi hin is 6. So he made it 9. So they thought that what he did is he took the half log and turned it in, he made it bigger to keep having 9 log. So Amrelev, how much now? That would be a percentage difference of a third, because 9, a third of 9 is 3. So 9 minus 3 is 6. So Amruleh, so how do you add a third if you can't have more than a sixth? Amar Lahu, no, I was making a new vessel, which would be fine because you can make a vessel that's a difference of a third between the vessel above and the vessel below, right? There was a 12 log and the hin, and it was the 6 log, which is the chatzi. So he said, I was making a new vessel. Well, they sent his new vessel to Pupadita, they wouldn't accept it because they were worried, I guess, that he was really adding to the midot and not making a new measurement, but, adding to the half log. But they did accept it in Papunya, V'karele Ruz Papa, and they called it the new vessel of Papa, so everyone would know it was a new vessel, and it wasn't that it was instead of a 6 log. Siman. Here's a siman for the next section. Otzrei perot en otzrin ve'em motzim ve'em mistaklim pamayim bebetzim matrim v'lo motzim. Okay, some of these things we're going to get to only tomorrow. Tanu, right? Those are just mnemonics that are sometimes added in the Gemara as a mnemonic to remember the next sections. They're not so relevant for our purposes because we don't really need mnemonics. We have them in front of us. Although if you did want to memorize the Gemara, perhaps they would help you. Tanu Rabbanit. Here's a braita. Otzrei perot, which is going to be our main topic for right now, till the end of the daf, which is people who collect and they store up produce before selling them. Okay, now what's going to happen? Basic laws of economics. When there's low supply, there's going to be increased demand, and or assuming there's increased, it's even if the same demand, if there's low supply, that's going to jack up the prices because not a lot of supply and there's demand for that supply, that little supply, and people are going to be able to raise their prices. So you can't collect Perot, right? Any kind of produce, stock up on it because it will raise the prices, and that's unfair to the buyers. Umalave ribit, which again, the people who need the money, you're lending them on interest, that's causing them a loss. Umaktine efa umafki eshavi, and people who make smaller measurements, right, which is used to trick people, and people who jack up prices, okay, in other ways, right? The Osrei Perot jacked up the prices. There's another way of just jacking up prices, causing the prices to explode. About these 4 types of people, the pasuk says, it's a pasuk in Amos, people who are saying, when is Rosh Chodesh going to be over? Apparently there was this custom, and there's Gemaras about this also, not to work on Rosh Chodesh, or when is Shabbat going to be over and we'll be able to work in the fields and bring in the crops, Laktin efa ulagdil shekel, so that we can start selling things and trick people by changing the weights and the measurements. Ula avet moznei mirman, to basically pervert the scales that we're using. Uchtiv, and it says also there, Nishba Hashem begaon Yaakov, I swear in the pride of Jacob, Im eshkach lenetzach kol ma'asehem. I will never forget, I will forever not forget these actions. Okay, that's God basically saying, you will get punished for doing these things. Otzrei perot kigon man. So now otzrei perot, who are people who do otzrei perot? Okay, they're going to bring an example of someone, which doesn't really help us, but it obviously helped them at the time. Amar Rabbi Yochanan kigon shabtai atzer peri. Okay, this is the guy shabtai. He would be otzer perot. He would, keep them in his house for a long time. Okay. Now we're going to have a story of Shmuel and his father. We're going to see who was okay and who was not okay. He would sell fruits in the early season. There's the tara harfa, that's when the prices are low in the beginning of the season, and there's the tara afla, which is the price at the end of the season when there's not a lot left. So he would sell things in the tara harfa, which means the early season when the price is low. Kit tara harfa, for the low price. Okay, that's obviously good to do because he wasn't collecting his produce. He sold it right away, and for the lower price. Shmuel berei, Shmuel is son. Hard to imagine Shmuel did something wrong, but let's see. Mashe leperi, he would wait with his fruits. He wouldn't sell the produce right away. Umezabalu batara afla, he would wait till the late season, sell it late in the season. Hitara harfa, but for the lower price. So we see it wasn't so bad. He was collecting the produce, but he sold it when the prices went up, and it sounds like he was doing the right thing because he wanted there to be produce for people when the prices are so high, and then he would influx the market with all this produce and lower the price. Sounds not too bad. But the Gemara says, Shalchu mitam, they sent from there, Tava da Abba midibra. The father was better than the son. Why? My timer, Tara de Rava, because by Shmuel keeping the produce in his possession for X amount of time until the end of the season, and then flooding the market with it at a lower price, while it did bring down the price had already gone up. And once the price goes up, it's very hard to get it lower. That's what it means, Tara de Ravach, a rate that goes up, Ravach, it stays up. Now, it's very hard to get prices to go lower. In the beginning of the season, they start low, then it's good. So sell your produce in the beginning, don't leave it for later. I'm a Rav. Oseh adam et kabo otzal. But now Rav says that, by the way, this whole halacha about not holding back your produce and storing it up for later is only if you're a middle person, but not if it's your own. If it's your own produce, you're allowed to wait with it. Tanya namihachi, it's only really for these in-between people and the peddlers who are selling other people's stuff. Tanya namihachi, here's a braita to prove it. Ein otzrim perot, dvarim sheyesh b'hem chayin nefesh. Here we're going to start talking about different categories. When we say, okay, we have two limitations now. Number one, ein otzrim perot is only for the middle person, and also it's only certain produce, like things that every person needs it. Basic needs, like for example, kigon yenot shmanim uslatot, the wine, the oils, and the flowers. Aval tavlin, kamun, upilpalim mutal. But spices and cumin and peppers, we mean the spice peppers, mutar, you're allowed to. Those are more luxury items. Okay, if the price goes up, the price goes up. Not everybody has to have those things. And this is why I brought the braita. And what is this referring to? In what case? Somebody buys in the market and then wants to resell. But if it's your own stuff, you're allowed to keep it. And in addition, even if you're a peddler, you're allowed to hold things for 3 years. Which 3 years? Specific 3 years if you live in Israel. Erev Shvi'it, the year before the Shemitah year, because you're worried that in the Shemitah year you won't have anything to sell. Ushvi'it, and in the Shemitah year, Umotzei Shvi'it, and after the Shemitah year. In other words, any produce that's sellable, you're allowed to hold back because you know that there won't be produce for a long time, so you can store it up. Ubishne batzoret, however, though, going in the other direction, if there's a drought, afilu kav charuvim lo yatzor, even a kav of charuvim, which is not even a lot, and maybe not as important as other things, even that you can't yatzor, okay, even if it's not like chayin nefesh, you can't at all store it up, because people are so desperate to buy anything, and any kind of storing up is going to cause a curse to the markets, which means it's going to cause the prices to skyrocket. Okay, that's the end of the braita, which we brought to prove this halacha about what Rav said, that you could store up your own stuff. Amalei Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina lepuga shama. Now we're going to talk about a different halacha that came out of this braita, that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina said to Puga, who was his shamash, he worked for him, Puk etzor li pere shalosh shanim. Please go collect my fruits for me for 3 years, Erev Shvi'id, U'Shvi'id, U'Motzei Shvi'id, those specific 3 years, so that I have produce. Tanu Rabbanan, Ein motzi'im perot me'eretz Israel, another braita, and another issue. You can't export produce from Israel. Very interesting. What kind of things? Again, this different categorization. Things that are necessary, basic needs. Kigon yenot shmanim uslatot. Because what will happen? It'll jack up the prices. If you export, then there's less supply, and less supply is going to cause prices to go up. Rabbi Yehuda ben, and this is specifically in Israel, we want to protect the inhabitants of Israel, the prices don't go up. Rabbi Yehuda ben Batera matir b'yayin is very interesting. He allows you to export wine. Why? So he wanted to get rid of the wine. Because by getting rid of the wine, it creates less bad behaviors, right? Because drinking wine causes drunkenness, causes problems. So it's okay with the wine. The other things, though, we're going to consider basic needs. And you need, it's interesting he says, because wine, we always know, is the basic drink they had in those days, but we also know the dangers of wine. Just like you can't take out of Israel to abroad, you also can't take it out from Israel to Syria. In other words, Syria is considered like Chutz La'aretz for this issue. I think, why would Syria not be? Well, some of the comment for certain sugyot, Syria is actually considered like Israel, but for this issue, it's not. However, Rebbe Matil, but Rebbe has a different opinion, and he allows it, mihi parchiel lehi parchiel, which the Rashbam explains. If you're on the border and you want to take from one border town to the other border town in Syria, from Israel to Syria, you can export to there because they're right near each other, and we're going to treat it like it's in Israel. Okay, that's it for today. And tomorrow we'll get into more things about taking things out of Israel or other differences between categorization of different types of produce. Necessary, less necessary, basic needs, not basic needs. We'll get back to that. Okay, we started with this braita that we had about what measurements you can have, what were the number of measurements you can have, and then we talked about the differences, how a quarter off, with a difference of a quarter from an existing one, all of them are basically more than a quarter of difference, other than a quarter percentage of difference, other than the last two, the 16th and the 20th, which were okay because we assume people will note the difference between them, whereas the bigger ones, it's harder to note a quarter percentage difference. From there, we got to Shmuel, who said you can't add more than a sixth to, if you want to change the value of a coin, change the value of a measurement, right? And up what a se'ah is, only up to a sixth. Why? We have 4 possible answers to why Shmuel said this. The 4th answer finally worked, which was based on the pasuk in Yechezkel, where he basically learns it from there. Then we have Rav Papa, who made this new utensil, and first they thought that he was changing the value, he was adding to it, and when we go against Shmuel, but it turns out that's not what he was doing. He was just adding a new utensil, right, a new measuring utensil, which didn't exist before, but it was fine because it was more than a quarter difference from the ones that existed. And then we ended with this issue about collecting and hoarding. I should have used that word before, hoarding produce. Right, I said storing, but really what it means here is hoarding, which basically creates an increase in the market. We saw the difference between Shmuel and his father did, why each was really trying to help, but Shmuel's father was doing it in the right way, and Shmuel was doing it the wrong way because he hoarded the produce in order to help the people in the end by keeping the prices low, but it ended up jacking up prices. And even though he got them to go lower, he couldn't get them to go as low as as it was before. And then we had all the limitations on this law about who can't do it, right? Where a middle person can't, but actually if it's your own produce, you can. And then we had a bunch of different limitations or extensions to this halacha in different cases where it would or would not apply. From there, at this point, we'll end. Wishing everybody a good day.